Hello, dear Mindfulness Collective. This, right here, right now, is the inky black void that I like to think of as the joy of being a live stream. Hello, everyone. Apparently, my camera needs to be unplugged and re-plugged. Allow me. I'll be back in just a second. Let's see what that did. Okay. Camera. Here we go. There we go, folks. You'll be able to see me in about 10 seconds. How about that? Excellent. Okay, folks. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, people trickling in as we begin here, as we start to trickle. I can't tell how loud the music is for you. I think it's at a normal rate. For me, it's really loud, which is actually slightly nice because it means I hear my voice a little less loudly. But what's the point of it all? The point of it all is I'm happy to be here. Glad folks are here. Glad we get to jump right in. And it's all right. Good. Just some background jams as we get started. So folks, excited. I'm actually starting a retreat today, which actually means that, just so you know, Friday there will be no stream. No personal offense, but it's going to just make life much easier if I just don't have a stream on Friday, and then we'll go from there. So that's that. Lovely. So folks, we're going to be meditating here. I'm going to have a lot of fun on the retreat. We're going to be meditating here for 25 whole minutes. The type of retreat is a Vajrayana. What do you say, Vajrayana, or is it just Mahayana? Probably Mahayana style retreat, and a non-dual, sort of concentration-based, non-dual practice. To think about exactly where it fits traditionally. But it's Dan Brown. Dan Brown is a teacher who I like. Has a little bit of the organization is a little unorganized sometimes, but he's a good teacher, so I suffer through it. Do you still need the meditation when you are awakened? We want to talk about awakening as not a sort of thing that you are, but more of a default within the system. And it is 100% true that you can still develop your skills, and you want to think about, like, there's entry stage awakening, and then there's greater levels of depth going from there. And so certainly meditation, but it's also that you're sort of meditating more and more the deeper you go. You are meditating as you're experiencing the world. Are you doing formal meditation? Some traditions you don't do formal meditation. Some traditions you actually are doing sort of informal meditation all the time. You're not actually sitting, though. What's interesting is that those traditions that emphasized how much you really didn't need to do formal sitting. Meditation is just such a terrible thing. It's no good. You just need to be awake in the world. They often, the leaders of those communities actually did meditate. So they're secretly meditating in the background, not telling their students. So that was their subversive thing to do. So yeah. Okay. So folks, we're going to be meditating for 25 minutes here. I thought since we did an awake awareness, so formal is a must. No, I don't want to say anything's a must, but it's going to have different effects if you do meditate or you don't meditate. We are going to meditate for 25 minutes here, and it's going to change your life. You will be a different person by the end of it. I can tell you that. I can guarantee you that. You will be a different person. Whether you'll be a different Persian, that's a question. Question for the ages here. Welcome, everyone. All right, folks, we forgot our tradition here. Welcome. Where are you at? I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn. What am I grateful for? So much. Adorable puppy. Man, my puppy's so cute. Holy shit. I was going to have her come to the stream today and actually see if I could start training her to sit right here. But it is a little tough because, I need her to be like still during the meditation, and she's not there yet. So I need to train her offline. My microphone is tilting. It won't sit still. It's just moving. Okay. Folks, we're going to meditate for 25 minutes here. I thought since we most recently did practice where we connected with kind awareness, today we would talk about either, I think we have one of two things. Oh, look, it's just Andy. Good morning, y'all, from NYC. Great to see you. Grateful for this full-time job I have that is remote. Super convenient. Yeah, means you can come and meditate with us. Fantastic. Great to have you here. Since we did a kind awareness meditation last time, I thought we'd do a practice around merging with kind awareness. That's one option. The other thing I was thinking was to work with parts, but since we haven't done parts in a while, it would have to be like introduction to parts, because I feel like people might be a little bit confused. So I think we're going to go with the merging with kind awareness meditation. Go from there. And beep up. Let me make a change of setting here, because the music's so loud for me, but it's like quiet for you. There's that. Let me turn this one up. There. It's probably about the same volume for each of us now. Just a little something in the background. A little background groove. Okay. Anyone else? Where are you at? What are you grateful for? Muse David's grateful for family. Andy is grateful for that remote job. Me too. I'm grateful you have that remote job as well. And what are we going to do? So we're going to meditate for 25 minutes. I'm going to encourage you to be entirely still for the full duration of that time. The way you do that is by arranging the body well, finding a position that you can maintain. This almost universally means getting the knees lower than the hips so that you do not have to hold them. I always think it's interesting when I get to do somebody else's retreat, because, it's like what's one of the things about being a teacher is you often don't get to experience other teachers. So it's interesting because I'll obviously be bringing some bits and pieces that I like from that world, obviously, with proper attribution and no implication that I'm a master in that tradition. That's something you see sometimes. People go to one retreat and they're like, I am now a teacher in your system. It's like, whoa, that is some intense stuff. Dave says, my chair is too low to have my knees lower than my hips, but it doesn't hurt or bother me. Okay, great. So my seat right now is the same. I wonder if I can flip to camera 2. Do I have camera 2 even set up on this thing? I might not even have a second camera here. Oh, it's called the doggy cam. Oh, there we go. Check that out. It's close up. Very close. Okay, zoomed way in. Okay, so what's happening here for me, it's really zoomed in. Hold on one second here. Let's fix this so you can actually see what's going on here. There we go. Okay, a little better. Okay. So I'm also on a pretty low seat right now, and so what's happening is that I have my legs crossed like this, so that my knees can be lower than my hip, like that. Makes it a little bit easier in that way, so that legs are down, crossed, so that the knees can be lower than the hips. Hopefully that's helpful. Let's turn doggy cam off. And the reason we do that is, we can sit back in the chair if it doesn't bother us, but there is something nice about learning to balance from the tailbone through the crown of the head. Scott Nesbin, welcome back in the Bay Area. Grateful for music. Grateful for this music, or just grateful for music in general? That's a good question. I'm grateful for music too. What a crazy thing, music. Come on. It's crazy. It's not so not surprising that there's been so many experience or so many things throughout the ages where people have associated music with spirituality or the spirit or something like that. Like there's something about it that's very otherworldly. Okay, folks, so find that nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. I have no back support. That is part of the premise, is to start learning to find a balance point from the tailbone through the crown of the head. So you're really finding a balance point from the tailbone through the top of the spine, and then you're finding another balance point from the top of the spine through the crown of the head, and then you're sort of from there finding a overall balance point. I sometimes find when I really balance, I have my chin is sort of tipped up a little bit, although I hear that sometimes people say you're supposed to tip your chin down a little bit. I don't know. It's not my experience. Could be something funny about my body. Okay, let's chill the music out. You guys ready to meditate? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, find that nice comfortable position. If you're unsure how long you're going to meditate for, decide now. I would suggest you meditate for 25 whole minutes. That's what we're going to do. Excuse me. And we will go from there. Oops, started a little too fast. This setup immediately loads everything instead of giving me 10 seconds. Usually they have a thing that's a little bit of a lag. Okay, so find that nice comfortable position. Yeah, one of the things that I found in developing my meditation body was, for one thing, through doing that, I grew an inch in my 20s, which was, kind of unheard of, right? Late 20s, mid to late 20s. And that was because I worked out all the stuff that was happening in my back. So there isn't other advantages outside of just meditating, but your back doesn't have to be that strong. You do want good core strength. That is helpful. But you actually have to find balance. So you have to have looseness in certain areas, a little bit looseness in the hips, etc. And then you're just finding balance. So you're not really like holding yourself up at all. It's actually very relaxed. So find that nice comfortable position. And when you're ready, folks, we in fact will begin. Cough before. You're glad you didn't have to live through that. Okay. Just a preview of the practice we're going to be doing. Don't worry about these parts because I'll guide you through them. But we're going to be connecting with kind awareness. So if you can connect with that easily, go ahead and do that now as we're speaking. I'm going to connect with kind awareness, and then we're going to find a relationship to that kind awareness that is, let's say, over time beginning to merge with that kind of awareness. And actually, just for fun, let's do this. There's a meditation that I like to do that's different than this, than what I was planning, different than this, but it'll still bring us to the same place. So find that comfortable position. When you're ready, we will begin. Okay. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. Each time we begin a meditation, we begin with the momentum of all of the previous moments. And the way we step out of the gravitational pull of that momentum is by tuning into the sensations of this particular moment. So feeling the body as we breathe. Sweeping through the body to be sure we're not holding any undue tension. Being sure to let go of the breath each time we shift to a new meditation object. Of course, we'll have some trace of what we are just experiencing. This is the momentum I was describing. But when relaxing, just relaxing. So relaxing the head, including the muscles behind the eyes, back of the tongue. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders. Relaxing the arms and relaxing the hands. Not controlling the breath in any way, relaxing the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips. The legs. And relaxing the feet. And then tuning into relaxation throughout the entire body. All neutral, pleasant, or relaxing sensations throughout the body is one big category. And this requires that we open our awareness. And then with as little efforting as possible, allowing awareness to open to include everything. Noticing how little we have to try. So we're not trying to concentrate or focus. Awareness is like a lantern reflecting off of everything without needing to try. It's the nature of the light in a lantern to simply move, to touch and reach everything, to bounce around. In the same way, it's the nature of awareness to simply know experience. So for a few moments, let's let go of any meditation technique at all. Not trying to do anything, but not trying to do nothing. In other words, if part of our mind or body suddenly tries to do something, that's fine. We're not going to stop it. But we don't need to engage. Sometimes the mind will be thinking. Sometimes it will not. Sometimes we'll be present, aware. noticing the bright, awake quality of our experience, and sometimes we will not. In some moments we won't need to be anyone or do anything. Don't even need to exist. And then at some moments, without trying, the mind will want to exist and the body will want to be or do. And these are all natural occurrences. We're just not interfering. Often, especially Westerners, add a lot of doing to the meditation when there's much less of a need for it than they think. So in this meditation, there's going to be as little doing as possible. So watch out for over-efforting, overthinking, trying to understand. There can often be a sense that we need to understand in order to get anything out of a practice. It's just not true. So we're going to add something to the process, but again, being careful for overdoing. And of course, since there's been very little structure, we might be a little drifty or spacey, and that's fine. Let's not overcompensate by adding a lot of doing. I'd like you to begin to know, to be aware of the fact that there is a being, a kind, deserving, harmless being in front of you. This is a kind of evoking practice. We are imagining this harmless being, but it doesn't need to have detail, it doesn't need to look like something we recognize, or someone or something. It doesn't need to be visually clear. The understanding mind will want details. And it's going to have to accept that in this case, we simply have a sense that this being is in front of us. That's it. Just a bare sense. Images may flash. Thoughts may be clear or unclear, but just a bare sense this being is here. Nothing special. Just a being. whose nature is harmless. Just a matter of fact, no need to perfect it. We simply know this harmless being is here in front of us, and know that its nature is one of being deserving of kindness. It's vulnerable by its nature, and it simply deserves compassion. This does not mean we need to produce compassion or care within ourselves. We simply know there's a being whose nature is to be deserving of these things, simply floating vaguely in front of us. Not needing anything from us. We can just be here in our non-doing, knowing this creature is here. Even if we know little about it other than its nature. In fact, we may notice that this being is so deserving of kindness that even without doing anything, it's almost as though it's pulling that kindness, that compassion from us. In fact, that's how we know its nature. Feeling on the front of our body like a gravitational pull of compassion. Again, we don't need to produce this. Simply by knowing the being, knowing its presence. In fact, this is how we know the being, know its presence by the way that it simply pulls. Kindness, care, protection, acceptance, pulling that from us. And we might even shift from simply knowing the being is there to noticing the way that it's pulling these qualities. And we might even recognize that it's the same thing. nature of this being, by the way that it pulls this compassion and care from us. And beginning to recognize that we were a little bit mistaken about this being's location. It's not so much floating in front of us as it is floating all in front of us, larger, further out to the left and right than we thought. The pulling is more like a half dome than like a wide beam, spatially broader, goes out to the left and right, even a little above and below, because that's where the being is located, in this half dome. Seeing if you can recognize that you don't need to do anything, just noticing the way this being is pulling these qualities from us. And once again, making a shift, recognizing that again we were somewhat mistaken about the location of this being. This being is actually all around us. Above, below, behind. Again, we don't need to create a sense of this being, just noticing this quality being pulled. It'll obviously be stronger in the front where we began, but noticing it subtly being pulled from behind us as well. If it's helpful, recognize that there's no need for us to be in the middle, holding on to a self in the center. We can simply know this quality being pulled in all directions, not needing to control it or manage it. It's simply this quality of compassion and care, a deep, deserving nature. Deserving of compassion because it is harmless, because of its quiet, gentle nature. recognizing for a moment that, of course, we can recognize this being's nature, not because it is alien to us, but precisely because it is deeply familiar to us. And there's part of us that can simply know, of course, this is this being's nature. And it knows this because this is in fact our nature. This being which seems to surround is in fact us. Of course, if it feels like we are in the middle, separate from the being, that's simply because that's part of us, the part that wants to understand, the part that naturally remains in the middle to try to stay safe. Of course. So from that position of being in the middle, soaking in, recognizing the deserving nature of that being, that watcher, what feels like the self. Of course, it is deserving of the same compassion and kindness. Recognizing that not only might we learn to rest in this kind, compassionate awareness, not only might it become a kind of home, but to recognize, in fact, that this kind, accepting, compassionate awareness is who we really are. Our true being. Of course, it can be known by us because it is us. And any part of us that feels separate from this kind awareness, of course, that separate part wants that safety of separation, precisely because it is harmless, it is deserving. It too is of the nature of deserving our compassion. If the eyes are closed, allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes, eventually allowing the eyes to rest on a single point as they fully open. Letting the spaciousness of seeing expand the spaciousness of awareness. And recognizing this particular moment as the great teacher that can show us how we might bring this practice into every aspect of our life. Okay. So as much as possible, staying with that practice, even as we transition into a more interactive phase of this process. Letting that kind awareness be the ground of our being. Physically allowing the body to adjust in any way. It needs in order to be comfortable. Okay, where? Wait, no. I'm in the wrong place. Here we go. I'm going to open up the Discord. Why is... Oh. Sorry, guys. I was looking at the wrong panel. I'm going to open up the Discord if people want to chit-chat like kitty cats. P.S. I want to keep very focused. I need to end the stream in 10 minutes. If somebody else wants it, I can start a timer too. But don't let me go past 10 minutes. I'll put a timer on because I have a student coming up and I need to prepare. Okay, let's kick off a 10-minute Tamario. Okay. Excellente. Dave is here. I'm going to allow Dave to... P.S. Dave, if you come in and you want to speak, just immediately raise your hand and that'll help. It just saves one click. But, all right, Dave, are you there? And can you hear me? I don't hear you. Okay. For now, we will just open up the stream. I want folks to use those digits to write down what that experience was like, what happened, what you're like now.
Can you hear me?
There you are. I hear you perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So what I was just about to say, and this is relevant for both of us. It's funny because I think that I have different ways that I get pulled, and there's, people talk about awakening a lot. They talk about the progress of insight, or they talk about these different maps of awakening, etc. And it's funny because there's that, and then there's this clear internal, sort of North Star where I can tell this is a very important direction for myself and for other people. And today's meditation was very much in that vein. This is clearly an important part of not only the way I teach, but I think it's very important for people. So anyway, regardless of what I think, what was your experience?
It was very interesting. It felt like I was about to experience something, I don't know, beyond the mind, and then I couldn't quite understand some things. Also, I didn't understand the part where you say this self that feels separate needs safety. Like,
yeah.
What does this mean?
Okay, great. So the first part where you said that you felt like you're about to experience something, but then you couldn't understand. I'm not sure if this is exactly the answer to your question, but what I would say is the part that wants to understand is that separate part. And typically people's, they get to a certain point and there is this understanding part that is like the limit of their practice. And especially in today's age where you can read all these cool essays and, understand this stuff and, talk about this stuff in this really cool ways, the understanding part feels like it's, the omega, the alpha and the omega, it's the whole thing. But actually there are experiences that it cannot understand. So we're talking about the prefrontal cortex, the part of the mind that can reflect back on itself. And it's incredibly brilliant, incredibly sort of powerful, but it's not actually the sort of limit of the mind. And so often what it'll do is it'll try to make a map or a model of the experience and then understand what it is in order to try to experience it. And there's a degree to which it needs to, the understanding part needs to let go. We need to have the experience without understanding. And it can be a little nerve-wracking because there can be a sense of, well, then we have to let go of reason. Well, there's a degree to which we do. And I hate saying that because I often will say, like, we don't get mystical, we don't need to let go of reason. There is a point at which the reasoning mind hits its limit. I said this to a student yesterday that, Descartes says, I think, therefore I am. And it's very clunky or clarification of what he's actually saying. And it can be a little confusing. So see if I can say this clearly enough that it's understandable. What he's saying is that there is a sense that there is an I, and that sense is the understanding brain. I think that is me. And that understanding brain can think about stuff, which is how it creates its identity. And that is the real identity. That's the good one. That's the big one. That's the center of the universe. In other words, I think, therefore I am. And it's totally limiting because it just completely says that the thinking mind is the furthest extent of our experiencing. So today what we're doing is connecting with awareness, which awareness just doesn't care about edges at all. It doesn't care about who you are. It just like sweeps right across. And we're pointing to the compassionate nature of that awareness, that actually it's sort of warm and loving. I had plenty of really deep spiritual experiences that didn't have that sort of quality of compassion. And I think I was practicing in a way, and I was wired in a way that stripped that material out. Not that I was seeing the true neutral nature of reality, but that I was ignoring the warm, connected, kind quality of awareness. I think that the intellectual mind can be extremely, extremely neutral, and so it will confuse that neutrality for like the truth. But I don't think that's the case. I think there is a kind of warmth to existential awareness. I know this is getting very weird into weird territory, and I'm always very loath to like get all moonbeams and crystals, but that's sort of my rough explanation. So that very getting into the woo-woo side of things, does that begin to answer the question? Kinda. Okay.
So I have to be more aware, like, of myself, big self.
Well, so what I would say is just cultivate awareness. Cultivate your awareness of awareness. And over time, it just sweeps right past any sense of self. In a sense, what it feels like is that it's there's like us, there's the me, and it's looking outside to something past the edge of where it can detect. It feels like it's like looking to something, nebulous thing past its edge. But all that experience is a part of us that seems separate. Usually that is the thinking, understanding self that is recognizing that there's something outside of its view. And so it has this sense that somewhere there's this sort of thing I can't have contact with, but it's trying to understand it and grab it so it can like get it, but it can't ever really get it. It has to just be known by that experience that is outside. Now, that sounds very sort of ethereal, but what it is it's awareness, knowing awareness.
Yeah, I can understand.
Okay, good. Okay, so there's that part. The next part was what I said, that part that feels separate is... Nate says our mind is making up an event horizon. What I would say would be, I think that's accurate. I would clarify just slightly. Every self that arises sees the world from its own perspective and thinks the world is just its own perspective. So you've probably had the experience of a part arises that's very overwhelmed, or part arises that's very like depressed or feels hopeless, or is like, it's totally optimistic. Everything's great. I can take over the world. I can do anything. When that self comes to the foreground, checking the time. Okay. When that self comes to the foreground, it sees every Thank you very much, Dave. My thing says, my phone has a crack in it. Okay, I have 2 minutes. When the mind, what was I just saying? When each one of those minds comes into, like, let's say the seat of consciousness, it thinks it is the whole world, and it defines everything by that view, and it says, oh, if I'm really sad and depressed, look how sad and depressing this cup is. I can just look at it, it just, it really bums me out. If I'm judgmental, I'm like, look at this thing, it's awful, look at the way it blah, 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 right? And it filters the world. The intellectual understanding self creates, each self creates its own event horizon, this sort of edge, and its edge is its understanding of itself. This intellectual self is a common stumbling block because it says that if I understand, I can finally get it. And I had this thing in college, if I just read one more essay, if I just understand this thing one bit further, I'll finally be free. And it always thinks that, and you never get there. You just never ever experience that. And so awareness is, what we talked about is the mind, the part of the mind that can hold, let's say, more than one thing. It just sort of wipes right past any sort of what thingness is. It's de-objectified. So self is a kind of object. Self is a kind of thing. It has a limit. It's a noun. The mind treats it as a noun, but we start to recognize that all these nouns are actually verbs. They're processes. These processes then break down. That breakdown then puts us in a place of, you could say, existential flow, meaning we're now in a verb tense. That verb tense can put us in contact with the nature of knowing itself, which would be awareness. And then over time we start to notice the qualities of that awareness. And those qualities start to then bleed in and can cut across any boundary. So if you can still detect that quality of kindness and compassion, if it's still available, is that available for you, Dave?
It is.
Yeah. You can notice it in the way that you look at this cup or anything, right? It's like, oh yeah, this cup, and it like bleeds right through. It doesn't care about the edge of whatever is in contact with. Yeah. Now we know we are actually cultivating kind awareness. This is actually, when we talk about heart practice, that, even Mahasi taught an awareness-based heart practice. And in fact, fun fact, Mahasi, this is traditional, that 3-month retreat that everyone talks about that's going to get me to awakening, Mahasi preceded that almost universally with a 2-month kindness and awareness-based practice, a compassion-based metta practice that was about open awareness. And then you would start noting and these kind of things. And Upandita sort of stripped that out. It's like, we could do that in a week or so. It doesn't really matter. It's optional, etc. And just took that out of the game. But people forget that what we did today is actually that sort of core practice to help the system get into this open, kind, spacious process. Really, if you look at that formation, Mahasi was sort of tinkering with and playing around with this sort of very much later stage Buddhism concept of letting awareness be the factor that encompasses all of the vipassana. They actually call the later stuff vipassana because you're starting from this place of kind awareness and then allowing that to be the seat by which you explore and deconstruct the world. So that's why this is a very important practice. So
I can use it.
Go ahead, please.
So I can use this practice when I do other practices.
Yes, exactly, because you're shaping the context of awareness itself. I mean, right now, attend to that quality and take action, do things. And in fact, you'll notice, I'm noticing, maybe you won't, I'm noticing as I do things and attend to that quality, where I'm just picking things up, doing stuff, I don't actually have to do so much. It doesn't feel like I'm really doing it. It's just sort of almost like I trigger something and the system goes and takes action for me. It's like we're slipping out of the doing need that is that we think is so necessary to exist. I want to answer your other question really quickly, but my dog will be very upset if I don't take care of it before this person. Actually, let me answer it the next stream. So we don't have a stream Friday, but let's answer that on Monday. So please bring back the same question, and I'll frame it for you if you remind me of this. Is why is it that the part that feels separate, the reason it feels separate is for safety. That's my take, is typically That's the question. So I'm happy to answer that, but I really got to go. I'm going to be in trouble if I don't. Folks, I'm going to put on the end music. Thank you, Dave, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here and your reports and questions and all that stuff.
Streaming as well.
Thank you. Here is our outro. Folks, it is delightful to spend this time with you, to practice with you. You know, I honestly learn from connecting with you folks. It is really how my mind works, is through the connection. That's how I discover this stuff. Great to be here with you as always. And as always, folks, practice well. Take care of each other. Have fun. And we'll see you